Sometimes it's kind of hard seeing other people struggle through life, either be financial, social, or some other way. Whenever I see others in difficult situations, I tend to be nosy and ask myself, what can I do to help? I have this habit of volunteering at my local homeless shelter, or donating money and other goods to the local charities. Because of this, I'm seen as this nice guy who's liked by almost everyone in school. At least, that's what I've been told by others. I sometimes question why people put me on this high pedestal that I never really asked to be on, but eventually, I just learned how to live with it and accepted it for what it is. Aside from that, I'm still human and get very nervous from all the attention being directed towards me. Apparently today during lunch, the principal is going to announce something to the whole cafeteria. I'm not particularly stoked about it considering everyone, including myself, knows that's an award ceremony for my achievements to the community this year. I always tell them that it's not a big deal, but they keep doing it without taking my words into consideration. They think I'm just being modest, but in reality, I just don't like public speaking. It doesn't help that it's almost lunchtime in a couple of minutes, but I guess I'll have to suck it up and make it quick. If they'll let me, that is. Eventually, the lunch bell rang and everyone quickly rushed towards the cafeteria. I, for one, wanted to take my time, but was quickly dragged by my group of friends. As we made our way to the lunch line, I saw a kid in all-black apparel sitting by himself at the far corner of the cafeteria. I wonder if he's going to get something to eat. It also seemed as though he was all by himself. Does he have any friends? I guess this is what I mean by being nosy. It's hard to see someone suffering alone. Well, I have something they should have too. While in line waiting to be served food, I told myself that I should invite him to my lunch table. I probably should ask the guys to see if they're okay with it first. Don't want to piss off anyone. And so, as we progressed through the line, I brought it up to my friends falling behind that I wanted to invite someone to eat with us. They affirmed that it was alright, and thus I got the okay to invite him. I hope it doesn't become awkward for him or anything considering we've never talked before. After paying and getting food, I went to our group's lunch spot to drop off my tray before I headed over to see how he was doing. As I was getting closer, he noticed that I was coming towards him. He looked skeptical and gave me a face of confusion. I'm sure he might think that I have ulterior motives by the looks of it. In order to gain his trust, I smiled and waved. He didn't wave back, but instead looked away. Something like this doesn't really bother me though. I figure that it's only natural that he would react this way, especially towards someone with my reputation. Eventually, I got to his table, where he was by himself and said hello. He was still looking away, as though he didn't notice. I ignored his defensive behavior and asked how he was doing. Still no reply. I then told him that I didn't come over to embarrass him or make fun. I just wanted to get to know them. With that, he slowly turned his head and looked me in the eyes. He asked, why him? I replied with a smile and said that he seemed really interesting and that I like meeting interesting people. He started asking me questions like how was he interesting and what about him made him interesting enough to approach. I'm really happy to see that he responded and replied. I then told him my reasons for what I'm doing, and then his whole expression changed. He didn't brush me off or insult me for approaching him. I took this opportunity to see if he would like to join my friends and I. He hesitantly said yes, and followed me through the noisy cafeteria. Eventually, we arrived at the usual lunch table where my friends and I would sit at. I told my friends that I returned with a friend. They all looked behind me and saw him. As I was about to introduce him to everyone, I stopped and asked him what his name was. He whispered in my ear that his name was Nelson. I then smiled and announced his name to everyone at the table. Everyone greeted him with cheers and told him to sit down. He was shy at first, but complied and sat right next to me. I'm glad to see he isn't eating lunch by himself. No one really deserves to be alone like that. After a bit, I tried making conversation with Nelson so he would open up a bit. He only did simple replies, but that's okay. I'm sure over time he'll get used to everyone. Before lunch was over, the principal did the whole announcement thing, and I was awarded for helping my community. Kinda weird, but I got used to the attention. After the whole thing, the lunch bell rang and everyone was prepping their things for the next class. Nelson, on the other hand, quickly grabbed his things and started to walk away. I quickly caught up to him and asked him if he wanted to exchange numbers. He was shocked, but I reassured him that if he ever wants to text me about anything, I'd be more than happy to talk. After we exchanged numbers, I texted him a hello with a smile emoji. His face brightened up and said thanks. With that, I left him be and we all went to our next classes. A few classes later, I received a text from Nelson asking how it was going. I was surprised to see he was trying to make conversation. I thought it would take him a bit more time for him to get used to me, but I guess this tells me otherwise. From then on, we both started having funny and weird conversations. He was a pretty cool dude for sure, and it makes me question how could someone as cool as him not have any friends. Well, I brushed off the question, and we just kept talking. It came to the point where he would be okay with greeting me in the morning and talking in person. Although he only likes approaching me when I'm on my own. So I usually tell my friends that I can't talk in the mornings, which they respect. Although, whenever I try to have him hang out with us, he tells me he's busy or that he doesn't feel like it. I guess he only wants to hang out with me. Not that I mind. A couple of weeks go by, and I started to receive constant text messages from him. He would even call me at 2 in the morning during a school night. I keep telling him to stop, but he just brushes it off and keeps doing it. It reached the point where the next day I had to bring it up to his face and tell him that it's not cool, and that I can't respond to everything he sends me. He would get upset and tell me that I'm his only friend that he could text. I told him that he could try talking to the other guys, but he just flat out rejects the idea. How will he make friends if he only wants to be around me? The next day, I talked to him about this issue again and told him that I won't be seeing him in the mornings anymore. He got really upset and didn't say anything. He just left without another word. I feel like I should apologize, but I didn't. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't get the memo. I left him be and went to class when the bell rang. When I got to lunch, I didn't see him at all. I wondered where Nelson went. I hope he didn't take it the wrong way. It's not that I don't want to keep being friends with him or anything. I'll try to look for him after I finish eating, but that would be least of my worries. When I reached my table, none of my friends were there. It was empty. Where did everyone go? Then I saw one of them sitting at a different table. What's going on? I texted one of them and they simply replied that they don't want to talk to me. I was baffled and confused as to what might have happened. Then I suddenly get a message from Nelson informing me that he made sure that it was only going to be him and me. Okay. Now what the hell does that mean? What did he tell them? He didn't show up, but he did send me another text message saying that he wants to talk to me after school. He followed it up with another message saying that he'll explain everything. I tried asking him now, but he didn't respond to any of my messages. At the end, I just ended up saying that I'll see him then. I was pretty concerned as to what he did. Did he spread a rumor or something? I mean, there's no way the guys would just abandon me like this over a dumb rumor, right? Why is he like this? I wouldn't know until he explains himself to me, and so throughout the day. I felt anxious to know what motivated Nelson to do something like this. A couple of periods went by and it finally reached the end of the day. I wasn't sure what to expect, so I decided to go in it optimistically. I'm sure he had a good reason. I made my way towards the band hallway that was located behind the school's gym. After school, that hallway rarely sees anyone passing through, so I guess it's a good place to get some privacy. I reached the point and saw Nelson standing there, biting on his finger. He quickly noticed and stopped what he was doing. I looked over with a concerned expression on my face and called out his name. I then followed it up with a question of why. He looked at me and just smiled. It felt as though the smile was empty with sinister motives. He then abruptly said that he loves me. I was surprised by this response. But what exactly does he mean love? As in brotherly love? Friendship kind of love? Or... no way. Could it be? He then said that's exactly what he means, as though he could read my thoughts. I composed myself and told him that I'm not interested in him in that way. He shouted with a devastating no, and continued to say that since last year, he's been watching me from afar. He wanted to get closer to me, but knew that he couldn't because of how beautiful I appeared to be in his eyes. I wasn't sure how to reply to that, but nonetheless, he continued. He started saying that he loves me so much that he wants to be me. Literally. He wants to be me so much that he was afraid the others would take me for themselves. So he devised a plan to threaten everyone who was close to me. It all makes sense now. I tried to tell him that the things he was spouting out was nonsense, but he kept ignoring my words. I had enough, so I told him loudly that I was sorry. Sorry that I will have to end like this. I took out my phone and blocked his number. He demanded me to stop, but why should I? If he isn't going to listen to me and refuse to seek help for himself, there's no helping him now. I turned around and started to walk away, but then Nelson placed his hand with some clothing on my mouth. I started to feel weak, so much so that I collapsed to the floor. The scene started to grow darker and darker as I heard Nelson repeating the words, "We must be one," over and over again. Next thing I knew, I woke up chained to a chair in some sort of garage. Where was I? Where's Nelson? What did he do to me? Suddenly, a chilling voice echoed from behind my ear. He said, "Finally, my blissful love."